Hello, I'm Dan Heber, philosophy professor and admin of Pedagogical Memes on Philosophical Themes. And from time to time, I like to do Q&A videos in response to some follower questions. And I have some printed off in front of me, and I'm going to work my way through them really quickly. First is Gonzo08 from Patreon. Thank you for your support on through Patreon, Gonzo. I appreciate that. The question is, I've seen you shitpost about some philosophers, but are there any that you have genuine distaste for? Bonus question, I'm an EDC guy, so I like to do pocket checks. What do you carry with you? Well, I'm not sure what kind of broad appeal that second question is going to have, so I might have to add chapters to this video. But to the first part of your question, Gonzo08, I've seen you shitpost about some philosophers, but are there any that you have genuine distaste for? Since you're a supporter through Patreon, I'm assuming that this isn't a gotcha question, that you're not going to try to find some obscure pro-Nazi philosopher and then come at me later on for saying that I don't really have any philosophers that I have distaste for. But I don't really have any philosophers that I have distaste for. Even the philosophers that I do the occasional shitpost about. For example, Hegel, Ayn Rand. I think there's value in both of those for different reasons. I think that there's value in Hegel for not only his historical influence in terms of, I'm talking there about like the Marx lineage, but the overall philosophical impact, and what he did and the ideas that he put forward. Even if you don't like the manner in which he was putting his ideas and arguments forward, the ideas are there and the arguments are there. There's a learning curve to knowing how to read Hegel. And I'm not going to try to convince people to like people. If you don't like Hegel, you don't like Hegel. You don't have to like every philosopher. But the question, as stated, is there any that I have distaste for? No, there aren't any that I have any genuine distaste for. And again, I do the occasional shit post about Ayn Rand. I don't have distaste for her. I'm not convinced by a lot of her arguments, but even then, you have to sort of qualify Ayn Rand's, her negative philosophy from her positive philosophy, or I'll rephrase that: her negative project versus her positive project. Her negative project, I use that language to refer to her criticisms of traditional moral theory, and she really has some quite cogent criticisms and arguments against traditional moral theory of the same level of quality that you would find in G.E.M. Anscombe's famous article, Modern Moral Philosophy. They're both sort of in different ways pointing out some of the same problems with utilitarianism. So I have tremendous respect for Ayn Rand's criticisms of traditional moral theory. It's where, Ayn Rand starts trying to develop her arguments in favor of her preferred alternative to those traditional accounts that I begin to, have less respect for Rand's arguments. But I would never describe myself as having distaste for her as a philosopher. I think there's tremendous value to be had from reading her. So that's your first question. To the bonus question, I'm an EDC guy, so I like to do pocket checks. What do you carry with you? And I'm assuming that you just you specified pocket checks there. What do I carry with me? I'm on campus today, so whenever I'm on campus, this is what I carry, which is the Milwaukee Fastback, which is basically a box cutter. And the reason that I carry this whenever I'm at work is because my college has a policy against carrying weapons, and the knife that I would normally carry whenever I'm on, whenever I'm going for walks with my dog, I have a 63-pound Labrador Retriever. That would be the Victorinox Huntsman, which I don't have with me because I'm on campus, and it would, it's a large enough knife to where it would be considered in violation of my college's weapons policy. Whereas this, because it's just a box cutter, I'm not in violation of any policy. So I have a blade of sorts with me, and of course it also has the screwdriver, which has a flathead on one end and Phillips on the other, with a little liner lock there. So it's quite handy. It does a little 90-degree lockout and then full lock in the extended position, and it's for a utilitarian item. It's quite handy, and I just always have it with me. I've carried a knife in my pocket since 1978. You know, whenever I was in the Cub Scouts. So it's just a way for me to have. Whenever you're used to having a blade on you, it's, you know, whenever you can't have an actual knife because of policy, this is a good alternative. And I also a big fan of keychain knives, and I carried the Victorinox Classic for many decades. Well, not many years, several decades. I switched over a few years ago to the Victorinox Mini Champ, and I like the Mini Champ because it has a little has a pen on it, so I'm never without a writing implement. I find that important. Of course, the Victorinox scissors are famous, but what I really enjoy is this little combo tool there, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but I wear reading glasses, and I need reading glasses, and the little tiny screw that is on here, this little Phillips that is part of the Mini Champ here is fantastic for that, and of course it has a bottle opener on it. My wife loves Topo Chico, and she frequently takes it on car rides, but she doesn't take a bottle opener with her, so I always have a bottle opener with me. So those are the two things. I mean, I also have, you know, my wallet and my credit cards and my car keys, but I'm assuming that whenever you were asking, whenever you specified an EDC guy, that you weren't interested in the credit cards that I have in my wallet. I assume that you were talking about anything sort of gadget related that I might carry with me. So thank you for the question, Gonzo08, and thank you for your support through Patreon. Let's see. Next question. This is from the Facebook comment section. This is Hansala. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. You have a well-earned top fan badge, and you're a frequent commenter and sharer of my posts, so I appreciate that. And I apologize for mispronouncing your name. I'm going to guess Hansala, but I don't know if there's an accent there that I'm unaware of. But your question, but Hansala's question is, what history of philosophy do I recommend? And my answer, if you've been a follower of the page for any length of time, my answer probably isn't going to surprise you. I like A.C. Grayling's History of Western Philosophy. And one of the reasons I like it is because it's available as a free PDF. I like, you know, resources to be widely available to as large an audience as possible. And A.C. Grayling's History of Philosophy has the virtue of being available as a free PDF. And it also has the virtue of being very good. Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy, for example, is also available as a free PDF, and it's not very good. It's entertaining, especially the chapter on Aristotle, which is my personal favorite of the chapters. The best chapter from Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy is the chapter on Leibniz, and Bertrand Russell himself, even acknowledged that was really the only one that he was, perhaps better qualified than others to write. But the Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy is not one that I would recommend unless you're already thoroughly knowledgeable enough to read it and recognize whenever Bertrand Russell is misrepresenting or being unfair or just saying something outright false. But to get to that point, you really need a wide knowledge base. I would not recommend it for an entry level, somebody who's coming into the field. I would go with A.C. Grayling's History of Western Philosophy. And I'm going to get more specific here. I'm going to recommend that you use the Edge, that you use Edge when opening the PDF. It's a superior web browser for PDFs. It's not my favorite web browser in general, but anytime I'm opening a PDF, I like to use Edge because the interface is just so good. You get the table of contents broken down, and it's got highlight function, and you can add notes. It's in my estimation, it's the best browser to use for a PDF. So thank you for your support, Hansala. I always appreciate you sharing the memes and sharing my memes and making comments about them, and I appreciate you sending the question through that comment section. Let's see. Next is from Instagram. There's a huge gap between my Instagram account and my Facebook page. In my Facebook page, I have over 33,000 followers. I think my Instagram page has about 400 followers, and so I don't have near the follower base on Instagram. See, this one is Emilicity, I'm guessing. Emilicity. It's got to be Emilicity. I'm guessing it's a portmanteau between Emily and Felicity, or maybe the name is actually Emilicity. But Emilicity writes, "Hi, love the page. Thank you, Emilicity. What made you want to be a philosophy professor?" What made me want to be a philosophy professor? Well, the short answer is that I didn't for a long time. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that sort of explains my broken up period as an undergraduate student. I went to college for my entering semester in college was in the fall of 1988. And I was actually on scholarship for industrial education technology. Those were the kind of classes I took whenever I was in high school. It was drafting, mechanical engineering, architecture. That was my emphasis. And I wanted to, go into that field. I wanted to teach at the high school level. I wanted to teach those kind of classes. And whenever I made the transition from high school to college, I quickly realized that I wasn't nearly as talented in that field as I thought. I was just from a small high school, and I was the best in that field that the high school had seen, but when compared to other people from larger schools, it was clear that I was well out of my depth, and I got frustrated as a result of that, and I ended up changing majors several times, and then I was 2 years into into the program, and I changed majors several times. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and so I joined the Army, and I was full-time military for 6 years, and then after I got out of the military, I went back to finish my undergraduate degree. So I had 2 years as an undergraduate, and then I had 6 years in the military. And I was taking some college classes while I was in the military. But whenever I got out of the military, at that point, some of those classes I was taking while I was in the military were some philosophy classes and some history classes. But it never even, occurred to me that I might pursue philosophy as a profession. I was still very much in the model of teaching at the high school level, and I enjoyed history. And so whenever I returned to finish up my undergraduate degree after that 6-year stint in the military, I was originally a history major with a philosophy minor. And some of the other classes that I had been taken during my full-time period in the Army, I was taking some history classes, some philosophy classes, and the bulk of them were history classes because I already had 2 years of college under my belt, and so I was like, I want to get all these history classes in. And so whenever I was talking to my advisor after I exited the military, trying to finish up my undergraduate degree, he's looking at all my transfer credits, and I already had like 110 credit hours at that time. And so I'm thinking I'm going to be knocking out this undergraduate degree and then moving on with my life. And my advisor told me, it's like, well, to be a history teacher, which is what I was wanting to do at that point. I was wanting to be a history teacher and a track coach. And he told me that, well, if you want to be a history teacher, you need more than history classes. You need all these education classes. And so I was going to do all the education classes I was going to have to take was going to set me back an additional 2 years. And I already had 110 hours of college credit at that time. And I did not want to be devoted to 2 more years of school to complete an undergraduate degree. My thought was, well, if I'm going to be committed to 2 more years of schooling, I would rather that 2 additional years of schooling be at the graduate level than at the undergraduate level. So I switched my major and minor at that point. I had been a history major with a philosophy minor, and I switched that to a philosophy major to a history minor, and then applied to graduate school that following semester, and that put me on the route to being a philosophy professor. So thank you for the question, Emilicity. And the last question here. This is Davi, D-A-V-I, Davi from Facebook Messenger writes, "Hi, admin. Thanks for all the content. You're welcome. Thank you for the follow. Your posts have really helped me expand my philosophical horizons. Do you have any advice for someone wanting to go to grad school to study philosophy?" Yes, I do, but it's very hard to give general advice because I would kind of need to know more about the size of the program that you're in, the size of your school, how notable is it, uh, what your performance level is, not just your overall GPA, but fractionated to the GPA they have in your philosophy classes. Since the question is specific to somebody who's entertaining the idea of going to grad school. I'm assuming that you're in the early stages of your undergraduate career, hammering out, a path and trying to figure out what you could do with a philosophy major, and thus contemplating graduate school in some eventual future that may be 2, possibly even 3 years away. So those are the parameters that I've assigned myself in offering some comments to your question, or some answers to your question here. Advice for someone wanting to go to grad school to study philosophy: have a clear conception of exactly what or who you're wanting to study. I've seen a lot of people that just have this sort of general vague interest in philosophy, and then arrive at a graduate program and flounder looking for a direction. And that's fine. I'm not being critical of those people, but it makes the path more difficult. If you're taking all kinds of classes, trying to figure out what you like, and then by the time you zero in on a topic, you're a second or third year grad student, and you're kind of behind the curve at that point. And the reason I say you're kind of behind the curve at that point, the easiest path for graduate school is to work it such that you take these seminars, and for those seminars you have this required paper that'll be 15 to 20 pages long for each of those seminars you take. The easiest path would to have a common theme with all of your graduate seminar coursework, such that every time you're writing a paper for one of those seminars, it can work as a chapter for your dissertation. And if you do it that way, you can be in and out of grad school pretty quickly. The people that have a tendency to linger around grad school for extended years are the ones that either changed their dissertation topic, or they didn't know what they wanted in the first place. Maybe they had a dissertation advisor retire midway through their process, and then they had to, get a new AOS, area of specialization. If you're not familiar with that piece of terminology, there's lots of reasons for people to sort of get sidelined and waylaid along that path of graduate school. So that would be just laser focused on the topic and an interest, and take every class with the idea of taking a research paper that you're going to be writing for that class, and shaping it and morphing it into a chapter for your eventual dissertation. So that's one piece of advice. Another piece of advice, just more general, in the application process, what they're looking for admission at the grad school is very different from what they're looking for at the undergraduate level. What they're and I've served on these committees before, these entrance committees, the admissions committees, trying to decide who's going to be chosen and who's not going to be chosen, at least at the graduate level. And there's a tendency at the undergraduate level, you want to show how well-rounded you are as a student. At the graduate level, they don't care how well-rounded you are. But at the graduate level, they are looking for future colleagues. They want someone who really just doesn't have a life outside of that very narrow academic interest. So on the application fee, don't talk about your extracurriculars or student life. Just talk about your research interests. Talk about what you like to research, what you like to, that your favorite, philosophers. If you were, involved in the philosophy club, if you've, obviously, if you've done, student, presentations or led student colloquia, that sort of thing. If you published a philosophy newsletter, as an undergraduate student at part of your undergraduate philosophy department, include all of that information. Don't include information about you being, your pickleball champion or part of the Ultimate Frisbee League. That's not going to impress anybody who's looking at your application for graduate school. And sort of going back to this, how the advice for, I'm being long-winded here, and I apologize, but I am going to add chapters to this, so you can skip around if you want. Another piece of advice I would give, I mentioned earlier, sort of depends on your academic background. If you're from a regional state school, your SATs are more important. If you're from a more notable, higher profile institution, your SAT scores aren't as important. So if you're, depending on what sort of league of program you're trying to apply to, if you're applying to a major program, mid-major program, research institution, you need a good pedigree, and that pedigree, of course, is going to be, what was the institution that awarded you your undergraduate degree. If you didn't go to one of those premier undergraduate institutions, you have to be in the top 5% of the SAT. That's the only way you're going to get noticed. It's the only way you're going to make it past that first level of screening. So you need to do something to set yourself apart. And there's certain things that you're in control of, and certain things that you're not in control of. So you want to focus on what you can do. And so it's just like if you went to school at a small state, if you got your degree from a smaller state school, you can't change that. But what you can do is you can really prepare for the SAT and make sure to get in that top 5% if you have aspirations for getting into one of those premier level graduate programs. Apart from that, apart from the academics, there's the psychological, preparation for graduate school. Graduate student life can be quite demanding. There are financial stresses, there are work stresses, there are relationship stresses. The attrition rate for graduate programs, I think it's about 50, maybe even 60% in terms of the people that drop out along the way for various reasons. It's grueling. It's not necessarily intellectually difficult. It's all the other things about just the life as a graduate student and how taxing it is that makes other areas of your life more difficult. The divorce rate amongst grad students is very high. I already talked about the attrition rate, people that never even finish the program, and then there's the double whammy of people that don't complete the program and they get a divorce during that same process. And so just sort of there's the academic level of preparation, and then there's the psychological and the personal, the kind of preparation that you want to do before you go to grad school. And then one more thing about going to grad school to study philosophy: don't take loans. You're not going to get paid enough to pay them back. Only go to an institution that offers you financial assistance in the form of an assistantship, which is what I had, or a fellowship. Fellowship is what you want. Had I been a better qualified, student, I would have been considered for some fellowships. Fellowships is where you get paid to pursue graduate studies. Assistantship is you get a tuition waiver, and then they pay you for teaching. So you can basically go to school for free if you live frugally, provided that you have that assistantship or fellowship income. I would not recommend to anyone. If you are wanting to pay your own way through through a graduate program in philosophy, I hope you're independently wealthy, because that's really going to be, if you're just wanting to, if you just want that graduate degree and you're willing to pay for it, you can do that, and there are a lot of programs that will accept you. I wouldn't go to the programs that would accept just anybody that's willing to pay for one, though. You want the selective programs. You want the ones that are willing to pay you to go there, and so that touches upon what I led in with my answer to this question. Make sure that you have that good undergraduate pedigree. If you don't have that good undergraduate pedigree, make sure you have an excellent, and I mean excellent, SAT score. And also the letters of reference. Letters of reference, they're not quite as important if you're from one of those regional, lesser known university college programs. And the reason why is because the people that are on the graduate admissions committee, they're not going to recognize the name of the person that's writing you a letter of recommendation. So if you have your undergraduate degree from one of those major institutions who have full-time faculty members there that you studied with and worked closely with, and maybe one of them was your advisor as you were a philosophy major, then that counts. There's a person who's notable in the field, who knows you by name and can recommend you. If they're just reading a letter of recommendation from somebody they've never heard of, who teaches at a school they've never heard of, no matter how glowing that letter of recommendation is, it's not going to convince anybody that wasn't otherwise already inclined to admit you. And so you need to get them to the point where they're already inclined to admit you based on your SAT score. And then those letters of recommendation from people they've never heard of, who teach at a school they've never heard of, as long as you can back that up with that independent, objective standard. And again, I'm not claiming that the SAT is a perfect system. It certainly isn't. But it's as objective as a standard as the people on the admissions committee have, and so it's going to be carrying more weight. So those were the only questions that I had for today. So I'm going to bring this video to a close. Thank you for following the page. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you've made it, I really enjoy running the meme page, and I enjoy the interactions and the questions that I get, and I hope you enjoy the page as well. So I'm going to bring this video to a close. I'll ask you to enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you soon.